All right, so I'm going to be streaming. It looks like I have a lot of silly stuff at the beginning here, but I am going to be showing how I practice a passage in a piece I'm learning that has a lot of arpeggiated figuration in the left hand. That can be kind of tricky to do, especially when you want to do a nice, smooth right hand melody. So that's what I'm going to be working on right now. And hopefully this kind of works. My dog is with me, so it might be kind of noisy at times, but we're going to try it. All right, so the piece in question, which I just realized I was going to give you a link to, and I haven't. Let's see if I can actually put it. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I won't. But it's a piece by Marguerite Balutet, Balutet. It's from her two pieces. Oh, no, it's not. I'm wrong. I'm learning too many pieces right now. This is from Peyron's Nocturne, Opus 10, and this is on IMSLP. So I'll put a link in the description of this video after I get done filming this. But I just wanted to do a little video explaining how it is that I practice arpeggiated figures in the left hand, because those can be really tricky. And the problem for a lot of pianists is, how do you do that smoothly when it requires so much brain power, we think, to do it, and then to do that smoothly against a beautiful melody in your right hand. So I'm going to show you how I'm kind of trying to work on it. I mean, this is a work in progress, so you're going to see a glimpse inside of my practicing, but we'll see how it goes. So here we go. All right. So what I'm going to do first is, usually with a figure like this, let me do it slowly first so you know what I'm talking about. Oops, that's probably too loud on my mic. So that's what I'm talking about, that kind of figuration. And if anybody's watching, if you have any comments about the sound input, let me know. Anyway, so oftentimes with this type of figuration, you'll have one harmony that goes for several measures or for a measure. So it's not going back and forth very quickly. And that's the case in this piece. So that's a saving grace. So what I do is I just take the left hand first, and I first note what the notes are, and I have a good fingering that I've worked out. So once I recall what that is, I then take myself away from looking at the notes on the page, and I just loop it, concentrating on what gesture can I do in my hand to make this passage possible without thinking much, without much awkwardness, that type of thing. And I'm going to go ahead and use pedal. So that's a little bit fast because it's not smooth yet. But then I do try to speed it up to check my gesture, to make sure it's realistic in the tempo. Now, I actually think that's probably good enough for how fast I need it to go. Now, after I've looped that several times so it's comfortable. Now I'm going to note how many times do I actually have to do that in a row. So I have to do that arpeggio 4 times. So now I'm going to do it realistically the amount of times it needs to be. But I'm not going to look at the music. I'm doing this by recall, by kinesthetic memory, and by a kinesthetic sense of what gesture I need. That's quite good. Now, to further kind of test myself, I'm going to try doing it with my eyes closed. I don't know how that's going to go, but probably do it a little bit slower. Yeah, so by the end, I sort of had further tweaked my gesture in order to be able to do that with my eyes closed. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the next harmony that's involved, and that is this one. So it's like a D7 if I'm getting really nerdy over a G. So really slowly checking the music to make sure I'm not making it up. Okay, now I'm memorizing it. It's memorized. Working on the gesture. This one's a little tougher because you have this black key on this F sharp, and that can make it a little bit more difficult to negotiate. So I definitely don't want my wrist to go down in the middle, because then I would have trouble negotiating, getting around the F sharp. I'm going to get it faster than it needs to be. Great. Maybe do it by memory a little bit, or with my eyes closed. So slow down again. That was too fast. Yeah, that's harder to do with my eyes closed. But I do the eyes closed because that adds an extra challenge in it. I like to add as many challenges as I can, because then when I go to do it as written, it feels much easier. Okay, so now I note how many times I will be doing that pattern realistically, or realistically, whatever, 2 times. So let me do that. I'm going to hear it in my head before I do it. Great. So now I have 2 patterns, arpeggiated patterns learned. So now what I want to do is I'm going to alternate between the 2 of them. And so I'm taking my brain out of the music and I'm just kind of living in these patterns. So I'm going to do 2, I think I'm going to do 2 of each. So. Let's try that again. I have to remember it. Okay, so my observation is that this one is the most difficult one. And I keep missing this A. And it is because of this black key. I think I just need to think more horizontally when I make that shift. So that's what I'll keep in mind from now on. Like I said, this is a work in progress. So this is truly my practice session. All right, so alternating between those 2 patterns was quite smooth. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next little pattern, which is very short, just 1 arpeggio up. Easy peasy. But to make it a little harder, I'm going to see if I can go back down. May not work. Well, that works, but. Great. All right, and then moving on, we have the same pattern again as the first one. Okay, here's a new one. So the next pattern is an E minor one. And there's no top note. And it only happens once. So. So I'm going to loop that set of 2 beats. 1, 2, 1, then the next two beats are similar, but it's more closed. And it ends awkwardly because I have to get ready for another chord. So I'm memorizing it now, especially that change in the end. Great. So now I'm going to take those two patterns that are very similar, built on E minor, and I'm going to alternate between them. So I'll do two of each again. I forgot it. Okay. Okay. Again, a little slower. It's hard to do that one looped. That was pretty good. I'll do that again. Now, since it doesn't do two of each in the real one, I'm going to go ahead and do it as written. Except I should do it a little slower first. That was good. All right, so now I'm going to back up and go to the previous pattern and link that in. So it was the G. Pretty good. I wasn't very secure when I went into the first E minor. So one more time. I forgot it. This is live practicing. I'm not concentrating as well. Okay, slow it down. There we go. Okay, I'm going to move on from that just for time's sake, but that was better as soon as I slowed it down for real. Okay, then the last two patterns we've got, this is awkward a little bit. D major. Okay, let me link those together. Or do I want to do that? I'm going to do loop twice and then move on to the next one and loop twice. Let's see if that works. So here's the first pattern. Loop it. So I do it again. That's pretty good. I would normally spend a little bit more time on this, but I am trying to move on to the next stage just so you see my process. So my next thing that I have to do, which adds a little bit of the challenge here, is that I have to be doing that while also doing this beautiful right-hand melody. So one thing I've done is I've made sure that as much as I can, as I'm was coming up with fingerings for the right hand, I tried to make sure that my right hand could stay in the same hand position while I was doing one harmony or one pattern in the arpeggiated figure in the bass. So For the first two measures that all stays in G major, my fingering is, I only have one movement. So it's relatively within one hand position. So when you put it with the left hand, so I'm only going to do whatever is lying on top of that G major arpeggio. So first, I'm going to go ahead and start this left hand pattern, get it going so I don't have to think about it. That's like the most important part. And then as soon as I feel like that's really on automatic and I'm really depending on kinesthetic memory, then I'll add in the melody. So here we go. Start a little under tempo. Dog is going to sing. The more notes I'm going to play, the more he's going to sing. Let's do that again. So I'm really keeping it, try to stay calm as possible. I didn't do real great tone in the melody, so this time I want to try to spend more time really listening to that right hand. That didn't work. Let's try that again. I think what happened is I was thinking ahead to my right hand, so I got out of sync with my pattern going in the left hand. That's the end of the G major pattern. That was better, and I could tell it was better because the tone in the melody was much more what I would like, much more singing, which means I'm not paying as much attention to the left hand. So let's try that one last time. Okay, and notice that I try to end each little blip that I do on the downbeat of the next measure or the first note of the next pattern. I find that that's really crucial to prevent us from taking time in between the patterns and in between measures, so we don't have a little pause. Okay, the next pattern, so the remind myself of what's going on. We've got the D over the 7, or D7 over G. Just for 2 times. And let's look at the fingering I chose for the right hand during that one chord. So again, it stays all within one hand position, basically, to simplify things. So much about piano playing is about simplifying for ourselves because there's only so much our brain can process at once. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to set up that pattern in the left hand again, have it just be habitual, and then add in the right hand melody and shift my focus to that. Pretty good. It took me a moment. I was still thinking about the left hand when I started the right hand. So I'm going to have the goal of trying to really make sure that my brain is concentrating on the right hand when I bring it in. And one way I test where my brain is concentrating is like was I able to do something musically with that melody? Because the decisions that we make are going to interpretively need to be based really on the melody, because it's the melody that gives us cues. So if I'm concentrating on the left hand, I'm probably not going to be musical and be making musical decisions. So that I thought I was shaping it, which means I was successful at concentrating on the right hand. Okay, moving on. The next, oh, you know what I should do? Back up. Before I move on to the next one, I want to link up the first chord and the second chord. Somebody just piped in, the dog wants to join in. Indeed, he always wants to join in. All right, so linking the two together. Good. Now I want to just note that I did, because I'm linking the two together, sometimes that transition between the first pattern and the second pattern can be tricky. So what I did, and I allowed myself to do this time, is I allowed myself to pull back the tempo just a little bit before I reached that chord change, so that my brain was processing what's coming next. I do that rather than coming to a full stop, readjusting, and then moving on. This is a piece written more in the Romantic era, so we can actually afford to do that if we need to in the long run. Ideally, maybe I don't want to do that, but in practice, as I'm putting this together, I think it's acceptable. And then I will try to shorten that transition time eventually. Okay, so that went pretty well. So I'm going to remind myself of the next pattern changes, which they're in quick succession. So we have again. And actually nothing is going on in the right hand for the G major arpeggio. So what I just really need to be ready for is the right hand, which obviously you can't keep that in the same hand position. However, to simplify it, I'm just reminding myself that it's going down different inversions of the exact same chord. So here we go, slowly. That was not successful. I was not thinking ahead to the chord change in the left hand. Again. That was better. Now, again, I'm sort of speeding up. I would do a little bit more normally in terms of repetitions, not a whole lot of repetitions, but I would do more repetitions normally, but I'm going to go on for now for time's sake. So the next harmony is just one measure's worth of this again, of the G major. And actually, thankfully, the right hand is exactly what we had before. So this is just a repeat. And then it's going to change chord. So let me do that again. Make sure that I'm thinking ahead to that chord change so I can stop on the downbeat more securely. I still need that repetition. Not quite right. I didn't change my fingering correctly. There we go, to E minor. That's different than the first time. One more time. Pretty good. I missed the last note in the left hand, or the last note of the measure, I should say. There we go. again, I would normally repeat more, but here we go. We're going to move to the next one. So it's E minor. And again, the right hand has to change hand position, but it's just inversions. I'm going to do that again. I'm not explaining myself well at this point because I'm so thinking about my own practicing process. I'm working on this transition because yesterday it caught me off guard a little bit. So I'm reminding myself of my narration while I'm doing this, which is at first, you've got more of the spread out arpeggio, and then on the third beat, it goes to a closed one. First one is more spread, closed. Okay, then this measure, we've got a D major arpeggio. But again, the right hand just stays, just a different inversion. Okay, so let me do this last one. It's hard to loop it because of that lower A. And against that, yay, the right hand is in one position again. And in fact, the bottom two notes stay the same, so it's really quite easy peasy. The top voice is the moving one. So let me link that with the beginning of the measure. Yay! Okay, now I'm going to go back. Oh, David asks now, what piano piece am I playing? This is a piece by a female composer. Her last name is Peyron, Peyron, and it's her Nocturne Opus 10, and it's on IMSLP. Okay. Oops. So now to finish off this little practice session, which has taken, I don't know how much time, I am going to go ahead and play through it slowly and trying to remember all this narration, all of this stuff that I've worked out in my head. I wasn't prepared, which is funny because I've been playing this G major arpeggio a lot. So I'm very distracted right now, so I'm going to stop myself. So much of practicing is actually about practicing concentrating, I believe. All right, let's try it again. And my goal musically, because I believe it's important even in early stages of learning a piece to be as musical as possible. So I'm really trying to get my left hand as kind of translucent and flowy as possible while my right hand gets all the attention with the sound. the work in progress. I hope that wasn't too irritating. I hope that was helpful more than anything. Uh, I find that passage very awkward, so we'll keep working on it, and I'll probably keep working it largely in that same way that I just did. However, I will try to speed up the process the more comfortable I get with this piece. So the important thing I think is really in piano playing to simplify one hand as much as possible, especially like that accompanimental pattern. So you don't have to put too much brain power into it. Uh, so anyway, that's what I was trying to do. I hope you found this helpful, and I am going